The problem is that she just keeps coming out with books. Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Read, share, repeat, where we discuss books from the perspective of an aspiring fantasy author. Me, Carrie Share. Ow! Can you get your claws out? At least? And today I am embarking on a brand new reading challenge, one that I have heard about for quite a long time, but never was brave enough to participate in, and that is the Fantasy Reddit bingo board. If you're not familiar with the challenge, I will link it in the description below to check out, but essentially it is a bingo challenge that includes 25 different prompts that also happen to come with hard modes, which make the challenge to find a book that fulfills that prompt even more difficult. There are other rules involved as well, including you can't double up on authors unless it explicitly says so, and you only are allowed one reread, because of course the intent of the challenge is to encourage readers to branch out, read new books by new authors. Now, Carrie, you might be asking yourself, didn't that start in April? And yes, you would be correct. It does run from April 1st to March 31st every single year, meaning I am already almost 5 months behind schedule, which is why I am not going to be super diligent about hitting the hard mode challenges. I do have quite a few books on my list here that will meet the hard mode criteria, but my intent with this challenge is to do a blackout of the regular prompts and then maybe get 1 or 2 bingos with the hard mode challenges. Because I feel like trying to cram in 25 very, very specific books in just 7 months is already going to be enough of a challenge on its own. So without further ado, let's get straight into the prompts. So the first prompt is a trans or non-binary main character, and the hard mode version of that is that this character must exist in a pre-modern era. I looked it up. The modern era apparently has been like 700 years. Google suggested pre-modern was before 1500. I don't know how accurate that is. Google is not a reliable resource right now. Either way, I have decided to pick up She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan, which definitely will qualify as pre-modern either way. This, of course, follows a young woman who was born with a less than desirable destiny, while her brother was given a destiny of greatness, essentially. But when her brother tragically passes away, she takes on his identity and ostensibly his destiny. Now, I do know that this only very, very marginally qualifies as fantasy. This is more of a historical fiction, so I'm not too sure how much I will enjoy this, but it's been on my shelves for many years. This actually predates the fire. I don't know if you can see some of the soot damage to the top there, but this has been on my shelf since at least 2023, and it's really just about time that I should or get off the pot with it. I'm gonna be here for a while. That took 6 minutes. The second prompt on this list is judge a book by its title. And basically, in the vein of judging a book by its cover, this is reading a book purely based on the title. Something so weird or fantastical that you had to read it without knowing anything else about it. And that is actually the hard mode version of this prompt as well, which is pick up the book and read it without even reading the synopsis or the blurb or anything, just going in completely sight unseen. And for this one, I have selected Snake Eater by T. King Fisher. If you guys don't recall, I am on a little bit of a quest to finish T. King Fisher's entire back catalog. The problem is that she just keeps coming out with books. This is another one that I believe has come out within the last year, and it is one of her horror books. And while I don't necessarily get on with horror in the way that I wish that I did, there isn't a T. King Fisher book that I won't read. And I can't tell you anything else about this because I don't know anything else about it other than it is one of her horror books. So I am going in completely sight unseen as the prompt suggests. The next prompt is translated with the hard mode of it was translated into your language within the last 5 years. And I have 2 options for this. One is to read the next book in the Witcher series, which is Blood of Elves. I read the short story collection, The Last Wish, last year, and I believe this is the next one. Yes, this is the next one up chronologically. Obviously, this was not translated within the last 5 years, so that wouldn't count for the hard mode, but something else I am considering is reading specifically the last volume of Cardcaptor Sakura Clear Card. I have read almost all of it. I actually read like fan translations of them when they were coming out in real time in Japan, except for that last volume. They weren't out yet, and I just ran out of steam and interest and decided to wait until they were being released over here in, actual physical form to finish the series. So I would like to reread every other volume that leads up to that last volume before that, but they're pretty short. So now I don't technically know if manga counts for this prompt, but that is my actual intent. And if that doesn't work out for me, I will go with Blood of Elves. Next up is a book published by a small press or indie published with the hard mode of it has less than 100 Goodreads ratings or is by an author by a marginalized group. And for this, I am choosing The King of Fairy by AJ Lancaster. I did look, this is published by a small press. This is the fourth in the Stariel series, which I have been reading for the last 3 years or so. The first book, The Lord of Stariel, I really enjoyed. It just came to me at the right time. However, each book I have enjoyed subsequently less and less. And the third book ended on a trope that I really, 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 really hated. And so it kind of dampened my enthusiasm for the fourth and final book of the quartet. But this is a indie published series, and so I feel like this is the perfect excuse to finally finish this out and get it off my unfinished series list and just be done with it. This will not qualify for hard mode though. This does have like something like 3,000 ratings. So the next prompt is unusual transportation, and unusual here meaning unusual out of universe and unusual in universe, as in the mode of transportation is not a common form for everyone else in the universe too. It is something that is kind of weird for the characters experiencing it. And this was a little bit of a struggle for me. I ended up having to turn to the comment section for suggestions, which was a good idea because there were 3 books that were suggested that were already on my TBR. The first being The West Passage by Jared Pachacek. I have no idea how strange transportation fits into this, but it was on the suggestions. And then the other one, and the one I'm probably going to go with, is Harrow the Ninth by Tam Sinmuir. As you guys probably know, I read Gideon the Ninth last year, was absolutely head over heels in love with it. I have not been able to get back into the series, and so this again makes for a good push to get me to read the second book in this Locked Tomb series. Again, no idea how the unusual transportation fits into this, but since it was suggested, I immediately was like, yes, that's the one. A alternative to those 2 books is Gardens of the Moon by Steven Erikson, and I have been saying for like the last year and a half that I'm going to try and start getting into the Malazan series. And I did like start the book and read like the first 5 or 10%, but it was just so dense that I ended up bouncing off of it and needing to come back to it. I still want to read it, so that is kind of like a backup option I have for this prompt. The next prompt is The Afterlife. So a book that deals with the realm of the dead, be that communicating with spirits or even taking place in the afterlife. And the hard mode for that is that the afterlife the book depicts is not a good place versus bad place. And I do believe that the book I'm already reading for this month's TBR, Katabasis by R.F. Kuang, counts for this hard mode challenge. I actually just read a passage last night that said specifically, the one thing on which all Tartarologists can agree is that hell prepares soul for reincarnation. That kind of bears out in the narration as well. Hell in this book is not a place of eternal punishment. It is where souls go to prepare for reincarnation. So I think that this will count. And again, I was already reading it, so this helps me out a great deal. The next prompt, Game Changer, basically just features a competition or game of some kind, with the hard mode being that the protagonist bends or breaks the rules in some way. I have no idea how to determine that ahead of schedule, but for this prompt I have chosen The Scorpion and the Night Blossom by Amelie Wen Zhao, and this is a Chinese mythology inspired YA fantasy that features a young woman who does go to join the immortality trials to be allowed to become an immortal, essentially, I'm pretty sure. So this is my Fairy Loot edition, so I am very nervous of engaging with it, but look how pretty. I am always a little bit leery of YA, especially anything that approaches romantasy, but I have been wanting to read this one for a while. I have been getting into Chinese mythology inspired fantasy over the last couple of years. Just none have really hit for me, but the vibes I always really love and I'm really intrigued by, as well as the mythology elements. So hoping that that one ends up being a hit. The next prompt is vacation spot, and it basically just features a world that you personally would love to take a vacation in, which is nice because that could really mean anything. And what is doubly nice is they did not include a hard mode for the vacation spot, which is great. So for that, I have chosen another book that I'm already in the middle of, The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. Of course, this takes place almost exclusively in New York City, which is a place I would love to take a vacation in and visit. So looking forward to the extra motivation to get this one finished as well. The next prompt is 5 short stories, with the hard mode being to read an entire anthology or collection. I am pleased to say that I have just recently actually fulfilled this prompt without even knowing I was going to do this challenge, and that was with Her Body and Other Parties by Carmen Maria Machado, which is a feminist horror short story collection exploring just different themes of how women are viewed and move through society in a society that is often hostile to them. I did actually just finish this last week, which I will talk about more in my August reading wrap up. But yes, really excited to say that I already got one checked off the list. The next prompt was an older protagonist of at least 50 years or older, with the hard mode being that the protagonist is not like an elf or any other kind of creature that has natural extended longevity. It is just a normal person who is older by their own species or race's standards. I once again had to turn to the comment section for suggestions on this one, and I was very excited to see that The Daughter of Crows by Mark Lawrence qualified for this. As you guys know by now, I really love Mark Lawrence's writing. His book, Red Sister, truly did change my life, and I will take any excuse I can to pick up more and more of his books. So this one has definitely been on my radar for a while. I did pre-order it, and I am really looking forward to having an actual excuse to put it on my TBR. The next prompt is Duology Part 1, with the hard mode of the author being someone you have never read before. And so for that, I have chosen Forged by Blood by Eggebor Åkesson. I really truly don't know too much about this book. I bought this very beautiful Fairy Loot edition at Half Price Books for probably half of what it originally cost. All I know is that this is inspired by African Nigerian mythology and that it is a YA. So, you know, not my favorite there, but I have been looking for an excuse to get into this one as well. The next prompt was to select a book from the Our Fantasies past book club choices. So I went and I took a look at the last year or so of their book clubs to kind of compile a list, and I've got a couple of options. The hard mode, by the way, I'm not going to do, which is to participate in one of the book club discussions. I'm not really interested in doing that. But for my options, I have The Teller of Small Fortunes by Julie Lung. I have The Poet Empress by Shen Tao. My third choice for this is The Everlasting by Alex E. Harrow. So I've got a couple of choices here. I like that these are both short. My copy of The Poet Empress is on audio, so that we'll have to see how that goes, but I'm excited to have at least a couple of different options, so I'll be able to mood read a little bit with that. The next prompt is published in 2026, with the hard mode being that this is the author's debut. And so for that, I have chosen Weaving Shaw by Heba Al-Wasiti. Again, this is another Fairy Loot book that I really truly don't know anything about, but it qualifies for both the standard and the hard mode prompts. So I think this will be a good choice. Oh, be careful, Harrow. The next prompt is explorers or rangers. So a person who goes to a distant land and checks it out, or a ranger like someone who works or is associated with the wilderness or the wild, with the hard mode being that the person has a animal companion. And I had to turn to the comments for suggestions because I wasn't really sure what I had. And I was able to find a couple that I'm interested in. The first being Ninth Reign by Jen Williams. Now, I did start this book last year and then ended up softy and effing it because I was just not reading. And it has been on my radar forever. I own the entire trilogy on ebook, and I would really really like an excuse to get back into it. If that one doesn't count, I'm also interested in Untethered Sky by Fonda Lee. That's the one I'm most interested in reading for this, also because it's a novella, and I want to read more Fonda Lee as like an excuse for not really being that into Jade City. So sorry, so sorry. But someone else also suggested in the comments that The Everlasting by Alex E. Harrow also counts because the horse counts as an animal companion. I'm doubling up this one for suggestions at least. The next prompt is the duology part 2, and for this you can actually break the rule of not doubling up on authors to read the second book of the duology you started in the part 1 version of this prompt, but the hard mode is to finish a different duology by a different author from the one that you started earlier. So that is what I'll be doing, and I will be picking up A Theory of Dreaming by Ava Reed, the first of which of course is A Study in Drowning. That was like the first book, or one of the first books I finished last year, and I really enjoyed it. I will say though, I thought it was a standalone until like the last page. It was only at that moment that I realized that there was going to be a sequel. Have not heard as many great things about this one as I did about A Study in Drowning, but I'm still excited. The next prompt is a one-word title, with the hard mode being that that one word cannot be like a proper noun, a name of a place or a person. And for that, I have chosen Fathom Folk by Eliza Chan, and I did look on the back, and Fathom Folk on the back is lowercase. This is a Southeast Asian inspired fantasy, and I don't really know too much more about it. The next prompt got a little bit of debate, and that is a non-human protagonist, with the hard mode being that there are no human POVs in the book at all. And at first, for some reason, I was just like limiting myself to like animals, and I was really struggling. But after looking at the comments, I got a couple of suggestions. Of course, the first one being is Murderbot. I have read the first one, so the second one would be what I read for this prompt, with the debate being, is Murderbot human, or is the discussions around their humanity academic in that respect? So I'm not really sure if I want to wade into that discussion. So as a backup, I also have Ancillary Justice by Ann Leckie. I do know the main protagonist of this is like a ship that is part of like a collective consciousness, I think. So I think this would be a good compromise for non-human protagonist. And if neither of those work, my absolute break glass in case of emergency would be Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. Because as we all know, she is an orc and there are no human POVs in that book. I would not prefer that because I'm certain that the cozy fantasy of it all is not going to appeal to me, but it is a backup in case I need it. Next up is Middle Grade, with the hard mode being read an author that is completely new to you. And I did consider swapping out this tile, which is another option that you have. You can choose to swap out this tile with one of the previous bingo boards tiles, provided that they don't double up. But then I remembered that my friend Lindsay Puckett over on AuthorTube is coming out with a new release this year, and she is a middle grade author. So I decided this would be a great way to show support for Lindsay and her new release, and that is Bitter Bones. So that is what I will be doing for this one. And I haven't read any of her other new releases, so she is new to me as a reader. I hope that counts as it being entirely new. The next prompt is First Contact, basically a story that features first contact between races of some kind, whether that be domestic or extraterrestrial, with the hard mode being that that first contact is non-violent. So for that, I have chosen Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. I am probably the last person on earth to pick up this book, including my own children. My son earlier this year was staying at a friend's house, and his friend was listening to it on audio, and so my son got really intrigued, and so he asked about it, and I was so excited to be able to pull this off my shelf and hand it to him. And now he's been bugging me to actually read it himself, or to read it myself, so that we can have that in common. So definitely need an excuse. I haven't even seen the movie, so yeah, I am entirely behind the bandwagon on this one. When did it come out? Maybe it would qualify for a behind the bandwagon review. 2021, it would count. I do have a backup just in case, because I truly don't know if that first contact is nonviolent, but my backup for that is A Desolation Called Peace by Arkady Martine. I read A Memory Called Empire last year and really liked it. It is a sci-fi murder mystery kind of thing about a woman who belongs to a so far independent independent collection of like space colonies that are constantly on the lookout for this empire to like have an excuse to come absorb them. They want to maintain their independence. And our main character is dispatched as an ambassador to this empire because her predecessor mysteriously died. So really, really enjoyed it and would love to be able to close out that duology as well. Speaking of murder mysteries, that is the next prompt, murder mystery, with the hard mode being that the main character is not a detective or an investigator of any kind, which unfortunately does mean that A Trade of Blood by Robert Jackson Bennett, which just came out, will not count for the hard mode, but I don't need any excuses to read that book. So instead, I have decided to pick up The Raven Scholar by Antonia Hodgson. And this is about a woman who is unexpectedly thrown into this competition for the throne because one of the other competitors was murdered. I love political and court intrigue, and I love kind of how fat and juicy this one looks, and I've heard from reviewers I trust really, really, really great things. The next prompt is Cat Squasher. So this is a book of more than 500 pages, which I have plenty of already, I feel like. So I am going to be stretching myself and going for the hard mode, which is a book of over 900 pages. And that one I did have to kind of scour my shelves for, but my Fairy Loot edition of Alchemized is over 900 pages. So yeah, I guess this is what I will be doing, despite having zero interest in Draco and Hermione fanfiction. The next prompt is Feast Your Eyes on This, which calls for food or a meal to be a key component of the story, with the hard mode being that you attempt to cook something from that meal or make the food in question. I won't be doing that. I am not a cook or baker of any kind. But for this one, I have selected The Hexologist by Josiah Bancroft. And the food element of this is that the titular characters, the hexologists, are called into an investigation because the king has suddenly expressed a unshakable desire to bake himself into a cake. So I hope that that is enough for this book to count. Yes, I'm almost done. You do not match at all. I'm just saying, 2 different plaids. The next prompt is published in the 70s, with the hard mode being that it was written by a woman. This is another title that I did consider swapping out, but the comments did point out that Kindred by Octavia E. Butler was published in the 70s, as well as many, many, many Ursula K. Le Guin books, which I have never read. So I think I will have a lot of options for this. I just will have to pick one of those as I get closer to fulfilling that prompt. So TBD, but I've got options. The penultimate prompt is politics or court intrigue. One of my favorite things, with the hard mode being that the politics or intrigue is focused on a city or smaller. So very, very localized, not like a kingdom or larger. So for that, I have decided to utilize my one reread opportunity and take the opportunity to reread The Mask of Mirrors by M.A. Carrick, which I did read 2 years ago on ebook. And yeah, I really, really liked it. I love the court intrigue. I love the court intrigue. And this is focused on a like city state. So it is a city. It's not an entire nation necessarily. So I do know that it counts for that. And yeah, it just gives me another excuse to get this book read and annotated so I can pick up the second one. I did think about just going straight into the second one, but it's been 2.5 years and I need to annotate this anyway. And I have a free reread. It just makes sense. Next up is Authors of Color, which seems really, really easy. So the hard mode is that the author does not live in the US, the UK, Canada, Australia, or New Zealand. So none of the English-speaking countries, which did make it quite a bit harder. I had to turn to the comments again for a suggestion. And the only one that really stuck out to me was The Mad Sisters of Essie by Tashawn Mehta. And this is about a pair of sisters who are riding a magic space whale. And that's really all I know about it. I do know that McKenna has had it on her TBR for many, many, many months in a row, and I guess I will be joining her in that. And that's it. That is all 25 prompts. Those are the books that I am aiming to read in the next, 7 months and a little bit of change. I hope that I can actually get through them all, but I am glad that it gives me some direction with how to structure my TBRs going forward, since I have kind of abandoned the reading plans of months and years past. I have been talking for way too long, and it is time to go take my daughter to her birthday party. So thank you so much for watching. I so appreciate it. If you like my content and want to support the channel, please like and subscribe, or consider leaving a comment down below. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, let me know which one of the books I mentioned you are most excited for me to read. In my next video, I promise I will have that Katabasis reading vlog for you. This week was just a really high anxiety week, and I wasn't doing a ton of reading, so I gave myself an extra week to finish it out, but I hope you look forward to it, and I will see you then. Bye.